All right, this trade deadline is really starting to heat up, right? We had the Trae Young trade for a little bit. Then we get the DeAndre Hunter, Vic Krejci trade. Then we get the James Harden trade rumor this morning or late last night. And now the Memphis Grizzlies, after trading away Desmond Bane in the offseason, are trading away Jaren Jackson Jr., which we thought could be a possibility, especially after Ja Morant has been in all these trade rumors. And a team nobody was really talking about, Danny Ainge of the Utah Jazz, swoops in and trades for the former Defensive Player of the Year winner, Jaren Jackson Jr., giving up Walter Clayton Jr., their first round pick from last year's draft after Ace Bailey, Kyle Anderson, who they got in that John Collins 3-team trade, Taylor Hendricks, the 9th overall pick back in the 2023 draft, George Niang, and 3 future first round picks. They're also getting John Conchar in this deal, Jock Lawndale, and Vince Williams. And we know the first round picks in this offer. The Jazz are trading their most favorable 2027 first between Cleveland, Minnesota, and Utah. So say one of those 3 teams is picking 10, that pick is going to Memphis. Or if the best pick out of that is 28, that pick is going to Memphis. The Lakers 2027 top 4 protected pick that the Jazz got back at the 2023 trade deadline in the Russell Westbrook salary dump. And they're also getting Phoenix's unprotected 2031 first. If you remember, Phoenix traded that to Utah last year to get 3 lesser tier first round picks to try to make a splash at the deadline, and they weren't able to do so. So yeah, we're going to break this deal down. This one is a shocker, as Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to the Utah Jazz. He was drafted to the Memphis Grizzlies with the 4th overall pick back in the 2018 draft. And yeah, it feels like Memphis is blowing it up. You got to think a Ja Morant trade might be soon. And we'll start on the Utah Jazz side of things. I actually love this deal for Utah because Utah felt like they were somewhat overachieving this year. They're 15-35 now, but before this drastic losing streak, they were 12-19 back on December 27th. And then they realized that their first round pick could go to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they didn't want to risk losing that pick either, because we know that that pick is top 8 protected. Right now, that pick is currently at number 6. I don't know how much Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to play for the Jazz this year, as they are currently 15-35. But you got to get really excited about the Jazz core going forward after this deal. Yes, they trade away Walter Clayton Jr., who was a first-round pick in the 2025 draft. He won a national title at Florida, but he's on the older side as well. Walter Clayton's already 22 years old. They have Keontae George as their franchise point guard, and they also have Isaiah Collier on their roster as well. So they felt like it was a good time to maybe sell high on Walter Clayton to Memphis and try to maybe buy low on a distraught asset in a way in Jaren Jackson Jr., which it feels like they didn't really give up a ton to go out and get Triple J. If I had to give a letter grade on this for Utah, I'm giving this an A or an A+. I love this deal for the Jazz because you still have Lowry Markkanen, you still have Ace Bailey, you still have Isaiah Collier, Keontae George. You're going to get Walker Kessler back next year as well, and now you add Jaren Jackson Jr. into the mix. You're going to have a Lowry Markkanen 3, a Jaren Jackson Jr. 4, and a Walker Kessler 5 next year. You kept Sensabaugh on Collier and all this, and Ace Bailey as well. Plus, they might get a top pick in the draft. Imagine this team also adds a Darren Peterson, an AJ DeBanza, or a Cameron Boozer. The Jazz could be the next team on the rise in the Western Conference going forward. Jaren Jackson Jr. is still just 26 years old. I know he's been around for a little bit, but he was the youngest player in that 2018 draft class. I know he's having somewhat of a down offensive season. The Grizzlies have had a ton of injuries this year. Jaren Jackson Jr. played 74 games last year, only 29 minutes tonight, but was an all-star. He kind of reverted back to his defensive player of the year caliber style and finished on all defensive second team. This year, the numbers have gone down a little bit, 19 points, 6 rebounds, shooting 35% from 3 and 47% from the field. That's the big thing with Jaren Jackson Jr. as well, the rebounds. Like him averaging 5.8 rebounds a night makes no sense for somebody that is almost 7 feet tall. So maybe that's just going to be a thing that they're going to work on under Will Hardy in Utah. Maybe it's going to be fine if he's playing around Lowry Markkanen, Walker Kessler, some really good rebounders as well. And Utah keeps still a ton of draft capital after this deal. Like I said, they still have their first rounder in this year's draft. They traded away 2 first rounders next year, but they also get another first rounder as well. They keep the 2028 swap with Cleveland. They keep the 2029 swap with Minnesota, and they still own all their other first round picks as well. They're not trading away any of their first round picks outside of the 2027 swap. From what we know now, it's still ways away, but the 2027 draft at the top does not feel as strong as the 2026 draft or the 2025 draft from last year. So Utah was maybe comfortable parting ways with that 2027 first round pick as well, and they're able to keep every other piece to potentially make a move down the line as well. Hey, the Jazz have kind of been rebuilding since 2022 after they traded away Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell in that offseason to the Timberwolves and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And Danny Ainge saw a chance to buy in on Jaren Jackson Jr., who's making $35 million. That contract goes up to $49 million next year. So it was going to be a lot more challenging to trade for Jaren Jackson Jr. in the offseason, since he's going from 22% of your cap space to 29% of your cap space. And he has about 4 years, $200 million left on this contract, but Utah isn't a big free agency destination hotspot. So they thought they can get in at a good price for Jaren Jackson Jr. I love this trade for them. I don't know how it's going to look for them in the second half as well after the All-Star break, is if this team still guarantees themselves their first round pick in this year's draft and they're able to add Peterson, Boozer, DeBanza, Flemings from Houston, Caleb Wilson from UNC, Keaton Wagler from Illinois, the Jazz are going to have one of the brightest futures in the NBA and honestly a really intriguing core next year. We still have ways to go before we're comparing them to like the Suns, the Rockets, the Spurs, the Wolves, the Thunder, and the Nuggets. But hey, the Jazz feel like they're on the rise. As for Memphis, this is finally time for them to go in the full rebuild mode that they kind of have been teetering with, right? So they trade away Desmond Bane in the offseason, which kind of signaled the start of that as Memphis got a lot of draft capital for Desmond Bane. They were able to use some of that to get Cedric Howard on the night of the 2025 draft, and now they accumulate 3 first-round picks and 2 former nice first-rounders as well in Taylor Hendricks, who they can maybe revive his career a little bit because he had that gruesome injury last year in year number 2. Walter Clayton, still a young point guard in this league. Hey, another point guard with Ty Jerome coming back healthy, looking good. You still have Scottie Pippen Jr. They drafted Javon Small in the second round. Is Ja Morant going to get traded before the deadline? It is definitely a possibility, but it made no sense for Memphis to kind of like go half in the rebuild, half in contention when you're going up against the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Denver Nuggets every year, or some of the loaded teams in the Western Conference, right? Ant, Luka, Wemby, all these teams are in the West. Memphis is 19-29. They're 11th in the Western Conference right now. They're 20th in net rating. Ja Morant is going to be out a little bit with a calf injury. Santi Aldama's hurt. Brandon Clark's hurt. Zach Edey's hurt. It made no sense for Memphis to try to be competitive this year, even though like Jalen Wells has shown flashes defensively still in year 2. Cam Spencer has looked good. Cedric Howard has looked great as a rookie. Gigi Jackson's coming alive as of late. They really need to have a good young core here, and it felt like it hit its ceiling with Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Ja Morant. So Memphis, like I said, already had some draft capital from that Desmond Bane trade. They own 2 first rounders this year, one which is their first rounder, which is projected at number 9, and right now it's a swap between Orlando and Phoenix, which is currently at 15. They're also going to own those 3 new first round picks. So they're going to own 3 first rounders in the 2027 draft, one being a swap with 3 teams and another one being from the Lakers. They own a swap with Orlando in 2029. They own Orlando's first rounder in 2030, plus all their first round picks as well. And it's not the worst young core either. I don't think this team needs to do like a full teardown, but I'm sure they want to get the best odds to get a Darren Peterson, an AJ DeBanza, or a Cameron Boozer in this year's draft, because then their future can change drastically as well. I always love these trades when they just come out of left field, because I thought in my mind we were getting the James Harden, Darius Garland trade today or something like that, at least the James Harden trade. And then this one just comes out of nowhere. I think a lot of people thought Jaren Jackson Jr. could be on the move. It makes sense. If you trade away Bane and you're willing to trade Ja, you might as well listen for Jaren Jackson Jr. But nobody thought this one was going to happen at the deadline, let alone today. Maybe this was going to happen in the offseason, but now it makes a ton of sense given Jaren Jackson Jr.'s contract, how it was going to go up $15 million in the offseason as well. So if I had to put a letter grade on this for Memphis, I'd probably give it a B. I do think they could have gone maybe a little bit better draft capital. It stinks they didn't take a flyer on Cody Williams, who I know wasn't great last year as a rookie, but I'd probably rather have Cody Williams than Taylor Hendricks going forward. I'd probably rather have Isaiah Collier than Walter Clayton, although they're not too far apart. I'm sure Ace Bailey was off limits in any type of trade here. I'm sure you weren't able to get Utah's first rounder in this year's draft as well. I think I would have liked that 4th first round pick like they got for Desmond Bane. Just getting 3 first round picks here feels a little light. Now that Phoenix 2031 first could be really good. The Lakers 2027 first is 1, top 4 protected, and 2, they're going to have Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. I don't think it's going to be the greatest pick in the world. Maybe one of Cleveland, Minnesota, and Utah is bad in 2027, and hey, you're landing yourself another lottery pick. But this feels like it's going to be a 2 to 3 year rebuild for Memphis. And now all eyes are on, like, where is Ja Morant going to go? Is Miami going to call for Ja Morant? Is Milwaukee going to say, we're not trading Giannis, we'll trade for Ja Morant right now? Are the Clippers going to do some type of, like, 3-team trade? Ja Morant to the Clippers, James Harden somewhere else, and the Grizzlies maybe get some draft capital. This is shaping up to being a very fun trade deadline, right? We already got the Trae Young trade. We are still a couple days away. We have plenty of guys in rumors with Giannis, Anthony Davis, James Harden, Domantas Sabonis, and this one is gonna, like, we're gonna look back on this trade, I think, in a year or 2 from now and say this was the start of the Jazz really being a formidable team in the Western Conference, or this is the start of the Grizzlies really going through a much needed rebuild. We've seen teams like the Rockets and the Thunder and the Spurs who are at the top of the Western Conference go through these rebuilds as well. So it makes a ton of sense, and I'm interested to see who else gets moved. So I'd love to know your guys' thoughts and opinions on this trade down below. If you did enjoy the video, I'd appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Subscribe for more content throughout the trade deadline. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.